Hi, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you for joining us here today. And I also want to welcome all the folks who are joining us remotely from 25 different satellite locations and conference rooms across the country that Bhavesh is monitoring via Teams meeting. Um, the agenda for today is that we will have Joshua talk to us about how to take a productive pause. Then we will actually pause for meditation. And then we will have an interactive question and answer session. So I have something written down about Joshua. A very warm welcome to you also. We are very happy you are here today. Joshua Pollock is a thought leader, lecturer, heartfulness meditation teacher, and co author of the best selling book, The Heartfulness Way. That book is all the way at the end, and we encourage everybody to grab a copy on their way out. He has conducted meditation classes across the United States, India, and Europe, and appeared on ABC, NBC, and CBS. An accomplished classical violinist, Joshua has performed internationally as a soloist and chamber musician and collaborated with celebrated composer A.R. Rahman on numerous films including Ghajni and Delhi 6. He currently resides in New Delhi. So over to Joshua. Please have a seat.
Do I use this? Okay.
I think your mic is
Let me see if it works. Hello. Can you? Is this? It's not, is it? Shall I just? Why not? Okay. Okay. It's kind of awkward having a big picture of your face behind you when you're trying to talk. Okay, so that's gone. So I saw the title for this session, so I was fascinated by this title of a productive pause. I don't know who named it that exactly, but I like it. And when I think of productive pause, you see, when you think of pause, you think of something stopping, right? And you think of some stillness all of a sudden. But at the same time, we never find that really in life because nothing ever stops. There's always motion and life is always continuing. So when I think of this concept of a pause, or when I think of stillness, I think of a kind of dynamic stillness. And an image that comes to mind for me is, let's say you take the axle, right? The axle of a car, right? Between the two wheels, or a cart, depending on what century you live in, right? So you have this axle. Now, in the space in the center of the axle is still, right? The motion is all on the circumference, not in the middle. But yet the entire thing is moving. The entire vehicle is moving. So you have this sort of combination of stillness and at the same time, the stillness is existing within a larger context of movement. And I think that's what we can hope to achieve through meditation. You know, I think that this is something which, you know, this is about going to the center of ourselves and finding stillness there, but remaining dynamic and active in life at the same time. Oftentimes, I think people think in extremes. They think you can either be active in life, you can either do things, or you can not do things, right? You're either active or you go into meditation and become some sort of recluse, you know? And especially in India, where so many of these practices originated, that concept is very strong even today, where you think, yeah, I live in India now, right? So that concept is very strong where you think, okay, people go into spirituality and they go to the hills, the Himalayas, right? They withdraw from life. Or you go, the whole hog into life and you forget about the inner life altogether. You're absolutely concerned with the externals, right? So I would say that I would say heartfulness is about marrying the two, marrying the inner world, the external world, and integrating your life. People talk about spirituality, people talk about material life. but they should not be, I think, separate from one another at all. I think we can define them, you know, we can define a spiritual life as a material life lived in with a particular attitude, with a particular kind of consciousness, and a particular kind of approach that we have to our material lives, to our family lives, to our work lives, everything about that. So that's what we do when we meditate. And when we meditate, taking this idea again of the wheel and the axle, we can also translate that into another similar concept, which is that of a hurricane or a cyclone, right? Where there's so much activity on the circumference, and then in the middle is the eye, where it's very still. I don't know if you've ever been in hurricanes. I mean, this is Seattle, so maybe people who are from away. I'm from the north also, but I'm from the East Coast. I'm from the state of Maine, right? So we don't really get much there. But in India, in Chennai a couple years ago, there was a big cyclone passed over Chennai when I was living there. And I remember it was so distinct the moment that the eye passed over my house, All of a sudden, everybody was going outside. Oh, it's over. And no, it's not over. You give it another 20 minutes and the whole thing whips back up. The fury comes back. You know what I mean? So in the eye of the hurricane, it's very still. Similarly, when we go inside, when we center ourselves, find this core of our being inside ourselves, we remain in this sort of silence, in this stillness within, though there's so much swirling around in our lives. Because we shouldn't have the illusion that the challenges of life will somehow stop, I don't think anyone has that illusion, actually, that somehow there'll be less turbulence, because the turbulence will remain there, But somehow you're in the eye, so it's all happening around you, Now, heartfulness is something, I think a lot of people are familiar with mindfulness. Who here has ever meditated before in their lives? Okay, who has ever tried heartfulness before? Who's ever tried some other, let's say mindfulness, why not? Yeah. Okay. So there's an interesting way to think about this. I was just talking to someone about an hour ago, and they asked me the question. They said, okay, mindfulness, heartfulness, what's the similarity? What's the difference between them? And I was tempted to say, well, okay, this is in the word, But we can actually go into this a little bit more deeply. And what I thought of at that moment was that people who have tried mindfulness will understand that it's all about observing the various thoughts you have, observing the emotions that you have, observing the sensations, and that's at the inner level. Then there's the external level. And why do they recommend this anyway? They recommend this because we tend to make a mountain out of a molehill about so many things in life, right? You have a little bit of pain, but then your mind gets applied to this experience and you create suffering out of the pain. So they're two distinct things. You have some dangerous situation and you create fear out of the danger. So we take these stimuli and we run with them. So we end up making things worse in that same way. We make things worse. Or you have some opportunities in life. You have some possibilities and we create fantasy out of them. We go on imagining it'll be like this, it'll be like that. So whether positive or negative, the mind keeps on running, right? And this causes us some problems because we sort of gradually get out of sync with reality, right? So I think in the mindfulness approach, and having practiced that myself a little bit, my own understanding and experience of it was that this observation of one's experience is sort of an attempt to get off this runaway train and disassociate yourself from it to an extent where you simply observe it and are not carried away by it, right? But this also has a drawback in my experience, because this observation is a very active thing. You're focused on it, right? You're attempting to observe. Now, if you look, you must have heard of something called the observer effect, right? Where you see that in quantum science, right? The observer effect, it's a very simple thing. There's nothing mystical about it. People try to mystify this thing, but there's nothing mystical at all. When you're trying to observe something which is so subtle, you're trying to observe some subatomic particle, how are you going to see it? So the only way you can end up seeing it is with some other technology, right? So maybe some electron is flying by, you're trying to locate that electron, see how it's behaving. So the only way you can do that is by shooting, a photon at it. But then if you shoot a photon at an electron, what's going to happen? That electron is going to go off course. Its behavior is going to change. So the technology we use is so obtrusive that we end up interfering with the experiment, right? And so we become unable to observe such subtle things in their natural state. But we have to understand that the mind itself is such a subtle thing. Consciousness itself is such a subtle thing that when we're actively using our mind to observe itself, we get the same interference, right? We get the same side effects. It ends up creating something new, it ends up creating a second effect on top of the first one. And instead of winding down this system, this runaway horse, right? Instead of letting the thing just calm down, now we're adding new energy into the system because we're adding the efforts to observe into this mental system that we have. So the thing actually perpetuates. So another approach to it is to not actually add anything into the system. So instead of very mindfully observing in an active way, we actually go from this, mindful thinking into heartful feeling. Because feeling is a much more receptive attitude. You're not focused. And when you're focused, you're being driven by something too. There's some motivation in focusing. But in feeling, it's so receptive. You're not doing anything. And because you're not doing anything, you're not interfering with your own consciousness. You're not interfering with your own mind, right? So now you become very receptive. And instead of being an active observer, you become a mere witness. So there's a difference between the state of an observer and the state of a witness. And it's a funny thing because when we look at all the old texts about meditation, we find this word witness is used everywhere. Witnessing, say, we find it in all these Gitas. The Bhagavad Gita is the famous Gita, but there are other Gitas too. The Ashtavakra Gita is another one, right? Everything they're just talking about the state of being a mere witness, which is absolutely a non-active thing. You're not even there. You're just removing yourself from the situation entirely. So I feel that this approach fulfills mindfulness's goals, actually, because now you are not building upon all of these experiences that you have, not reacting to them. So, this is something that I suggest that we all try. I would like to share with you an experience of this heartfulness approach to meditation, see what you make of it. This should be something, I have to talk about it because I'm here and you have an hour to fill up. I'm being very honest, my inclination is just to conduct meditation and do nothing else. Form your own conclusion about it, experience it for yourself, understand it based on your experience, and let that be that. That's the best way. Talking about it, I think some people, need to hear some words, need to hear some ideas, but the best thing is just to do it. So, I think why don't we go straight into that right now, and then we can talk more afterwards. There's no problem there. There's no problem with talking. So if there are questions, or we can have a conversation about things. All right. So why don't we silence the mobile phones? Yeah. Because these things become devils when we're trying to meditate. Oh yeah, I also have to silence my phone. Now, the one thing I'll tell you is that let us refrain from trying to judge or conclude anything at all based on our experience of meditation. But instead, if we want to conclude anything about it, let us wait and judge by the result of the meditation or the afterwards. Because meditation is always a kind of journey. We talk about stillness, we talk about pausing. But at the same time, to get to that place of stillness and silence, you have to move to that place. And in that movement, there's never any stability. So in that instability, you might feel disturbed even. You know, sometimes you'll feel peace during meditation, sometimes you'll feel something else, feel restless perhaps. So because it's a journey, let us wait until the end of meditation to conclude anything about, its effectiveness, you know. Okay. So let me explain how we do it. And I'll preface this by saying that we're going to do two things actually, not only meditation. We'll start by relaxing the body. It'll be easier to meditate when the body's relaxed. So then you'll be hearing my voice. I'll be explaining to please relax your legs and arms and like that for about a minute, 2 minutes. And then I'll ask you to please start meditation. And then that'll be a silent thing with our eyes closed, sitting still. And that'll go on for maybe 10 minutes, 12 minutes. Okay? So when I ask you to please begin meditating, what do we do? Not much. I'm a violinist, right? So a classical violinist, everyone knows about Mozart. Mozart, they say it's the simplest music. There's nothing complicated about it. But everyone struggles playing Mozart because we're all so complicated that we can't do anything in a simple way. So this is a very simple meditation. In the same way, we're not doing so much. It's less and less and less, more and more of less and less. And what we actually do is that we just presume the presence of some light in the heart. We presume that it's there. You actually don't have to even believe that it's there. You can just suppose that it's there. Take it as a hypothesis. Don't take it as a belief. You can say, is it really there? It doesn't matter. Or just take it as a hypothesis, which you're just going to entertain this hypothesis for the sake of conducting this meditative experiment. Okay? So suppose that this light is present in the heart. Do you try to see it? No, you'll never see it. But it's something that you can feel. If you experience it, it'll be through feeling that you experience this lightness, not through seeing or anything like that. So you don't need to try to go into your imagination here. We're going into feeling. It's a very passive thing almost. So you close your eyes, center your attention there in your heart. If you can't find your heart, it's okay. Just your chest area. And you don't even need to say, okay, let me focus on my heart. No focus. In fact, all you need to do is just presume that your attention is already centered in your heart. You don't have to move it or try to put your attention there. Just presume your attention is already there. Presume that that light is already present. And now you just wait. In a sort of relaxed way, you just wait and see what happens. You know? That's all there is to it. So, why don't we begin? So please close your eyes, sit comfortably. It's okay if your back is resting against the chair. Doesn't matter. With your eyes very gently closed. Now bring your attention to your toes. You can move your toes and now relax them. And relax your feet. And you can even imagine, it may help you, to think that there's some current of healing energy entering into the soles of your feet and gently moving up your legs, moving up your body, relaxing every muscle as it goes, relaxing your ankles and lower legs, your knees, and relax your upper legs, hips, and waste. Let your abdomen relax and relax all the muscles of your chest. Any place where your body is in contact with your chair, relax that place. Your back, from the base of your spine all the way up to your shoulders. Relax every muscle, and especially your shoulders. Let them feel as if they're just melting away, like liquid, relaxing. And relax your upper arms, your triceps, bicep muscles. Relax your elbows and all the muscles of your forearms, your wrists and hands and fingers. And you can even feel the energy flowing out from your fingertips. And now relax your neck muscles. Relax your jaws, your mouth, tongue, even your teeth. Relax all the muscles of your face, your eyes and eyeballs. Let there be a lot of softness around your eyes. Relax your ears and earlobes. All the way to the top of your head. And gently become aware of your entire body. If there's any place that requires further relaxation, let that place relax. Relax that muscle or organ. Now, with the suggestion that your awareness is already centered there in the heart, where light is present, light from the source, from your source within yourself. Light which will attract you further, deeper within. Please start meditation. That's all. Now, before you open your eyes, just get into this feeling that you have. Enjoy this feeling. Notice. And remain with your eyes closed for another minute more, now that meditation is over. As you feel ready, you can open your eyes, but almost as if you're still meditating, with open eyes now. As we bring this meditative condition into our wakeful state. People seem so much withdrawn inside that I don't feel guilty saying anything and drawing you back outwards. If there's anybody who would like to, I don't know, share what your experience is, you can feel free to do that, or ask any question or raise any objection. I don't know. Anything. Yes. So I don't know if people heard the question. I'll just try to summarize it. The difficulty he found was in trying not to think anything and instead go only into feeling, right? And he would have liked to have some focal point, mental focal point, so he was trying to think of something that could that makes him happy, some memory or some idea. Okay, so I would like to clear one pervasive belief about meditation, which I think is, I don't know how it got started, but the idea that people have is that somehow we should erase our thoughts during meditation. This is an unnatural thing because the mind has a purpose and thoughts are natural. To achieve a thoughtless state can happen, but never as a result of trying to achieve a thoughtless state, never as a result of trying to nullify or negate your mental movement. So I think the idea of trying to stop this process of thinking will only create some sort of inner dissonance. Because now, again, we're feeding this mental system. You have this famous law that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Whereas when we're dealing with consciousness, the reaction is opposite, but it's not equal. It's usually disproportionate. You can throw a nice pebble into a pond, but now a tsunami comes out to get you. That's what happens when we try to fight against the thoughts. So it's okay if they come. We don't need to. In fact, it's good if they come. Even if they disturb us, it's good. Because what's really happening with thoughts, most of the time, we are harboring so much life experiences, right? Experiences we have and our reactions to those experiences. These emotions, these memories, emotional memories, things, they just stay within us, these burdens. We carry the burdens, and we'll never feel light so long as we're carrying those burdens. But we don't feel heavy either because we get used to them. You know, we just feel this is my state. But then if they get removed, we feel light by contrast. But when we meditate, often what happens, it's like the same thing as if you open a can of Sprite or some carbonated drink, where all of a sudden all this fizz rushes to the surface. All the carbon trapped inside just rushes out. Same thing happens when we meditate. Everything we're harboring inside now rushes out, and we feel disturbed because of this rush. And what we're not real, and we feel that we have, performed this meditation wrongly because we think, oh, I should be thoughtless. It should only be stillness. That's why I said, look how you feel afterwards. So what happens if you leave that can of soda, just lying there, sitting there open? The next day you come back to it, it's flat. It's no good. But there's stillness in it now because everything's rushed out. So in the same way, I think meditation, afterwards you encounter more stillness than during because of this movement, this vacuum, Now, generally, what we're doing here is we're moving towards subtlety, towards a state of subtlety, right? And you can understand there's always a progression. There's always, not a progression, but a spectrum. You can say from grossness to subtlety, you have ice, or then you have a subtler form of water, which is liquid, or an even subtler form, which is vapor, right? So with our consciousness, we're also moving towards subtlety. Now, at the beginning, we're only used to forms. So we're looking, often in religious approaches too, people think of, let's say, their deity, whatever their religion may be, and they think of a person. They think of arms and legs, or they think of some kind of a form. You know what I mean? So here we're going from form to formlessness, from grossness to subtlety. So we're not used to something that of that level of subtlety, of that level of formlessness. So often we're trying to see something that we can recognize, something that we can latch onto. And this causes us some discomfort at times. But the process itself will, as it makes your consciousness into a more subtle, into a more finer sort of thing, then the urge to actually experience that in some sort of form will also go away. So I think the process itself will create that effect over some time. We don't have to feel, as if we're missing something because we don't have a focal point. Concentration it's counterproductive when it comes to meditation. People associate concentration with meditation. Really, meditation is a state of focus, not concentration. It's not even a state of focus. But the difference, I'm saying, between the two states of concentration and focus, it's only a matter of effort. When you're trying to focus on something, you're applying concentration. That means that your mind is not going there on its own accord, so you're trying to force it to go there. Whereas if you think of the favorite thing that you have in the whole world, your favorite meal. I don't know what it is, whatever it may be. You never have to focus on that thing. Your mind automatically goes there. So it's only when the mind isn't automatically or naturally going there that you try to somehow squeeze it into this, box. Go there. You're studying, you're doing some work, and it's just driving you crazy, and you want to do something else. Now you have to concentrate. So with meditation, concentration, we'll never experience the peace, for instance, or relaxation if we're using so much energy and effort to focus. Instead, we'll just get tired out. You know what I mean? But this is a matter for experience. We just have to play around with this. We have to understand, we have to play around and experience with this spectrum of effort to effortlessness, from form to formlessness, from grossness to subtlety. And we find our way. So, yes. So I don't know if I can rephrase that for everyone, but I grasp, I share your experience also. You know, maybe people heard it, I don't know. Weightlessness, lightness, experiences here. He was sharing his experience in meditation. I don't know, does anybody want to have anything to say, or it's okay if you don't. There's no. Yes. Uh, yeah, absolutely normal. It's this going inside, you know. So this is heartfulness comes from. I was talking about the difference between mindfulness and heartfulness. Another way you can understand that is mindfulness comes out of the Theravada Buddhist tradition, right? And heartfulness comes out of the Raja Yoga tradition. Ultimately the same essence to begin with, right? But in the tradition of Raja Yoga, or sort of codified by this one fellow, Rishi Patanjali, into the Yoga Sutras, where he gives 8 steps, right? And the fifth of these 8 steps, so these 8 steps are actually defining a progression by which one enters into a deep state of meditation, which he calls samadhi, right? Samadhi state. And that's the 8th step. There's much more beyond the 8th step, but he didn't talk about that. Now, the 5th step is something called pratyahara. Pratyahara means going within, right? And we find that's where we find all the difficulty. Okay, I want to go inside. I want to go to my center. But then all these other things, turbulences get in the way, and all my thoughts are about external things. So I'm always finding my orientation being pushed back outwards, So this is when we have difficulty in meditation. That's what it's overcoming this one bottleneck, this step number 5, the pratyahara. But then when we're able to get over that hump somehow, it's nothing to do with skill, but just happens, accidentally, like. And we're able to go inside. And then you are going towards this samadhi like state where there's balance. But in that samadhi like state, you've already gone within. So now you start to wonder, am I falling asleep? Right? And this feeling of drowsiness is there. I wouldn't exactly call it drowsiness because it doesn't have grogginess at the heart of it. Drowsy, maybe you're in some other state of consciousness, but after you come out of it, it's not as if he's like, I need coffee. You're not just heavy. You're not feeling heavy afterwards. There's some sort of freshness in that state too. That's actually how we can tell if we've been actually sleeping or if we're in a samadhi-like state. Now, a question arises is how a person can enter into a samadhi-like state when tradition dictates that this is sort of the final goal of the entire lifelong process. Or if you subscribe to the other theories that exist in India, lifetimes of process, right? So it's not supposed to be so easy where you can just experience it like that. And sometimes you can say, you know, someone can say, okay, show me right now. Can you just sit there and fall asleep? Give me 2 minutes, fall asleep, maybe if you're really tired. But it's not so easy. If it were so easy, people wouldn't say they're struggling with their thoughts so much in meditation. So, reason this can come about, I would say, is one of the, this is something, it's too difficult to explain, but you've all just experienced it. Meditation is one thing, but then there's also something we call yogic transmission. That's another aspect, which it really has an impact on our meditation. Now, what is it? I don't know how to say it. There's a poet. I really like this poet. His name is Kabir. Maybe some people have heard of Kabir. Maybe, I don't know when he was from, 15th century or something like that. Medieval Indian poet. He's beloved by everybody. Islam claims him, Hinduism claims him. Everybody thinks he's great. And he would have, sometimes he was very forceful in his poetry, but sometimes he also said some things that seem paradoxical, like so many of these Zen koans, they're paradoxical, right? So Kabir, I remember one line where he writes about the sound produced by the string that has not yet been struck, of a musical instrument, by a string that hasn't been plucked. So you have some sitar or something. You're not plucking the strings. It's emitting no sound, but Kabir hears a sound from that. So what is he talking about? This is some confusing thing. So he's basically saying that there are two kinds of things. There's the manifested world, and then there's the unmanifested world. And then there's something it is not like being and non-being. There's some being in that non-being. There's some potential in that non-being. It's not yet manifest, but it has the potentiality there. So he hears that most subtle thing, which is only potentiality, right? So he's talking on that level. And when I talk about yogic transmission, people can say, oh, is it like Reiki? Where there's some energy being transmitted from somebody into you and you benefit from that. Yes and no. If it were energy, I would say that energy belongs to this, created or manifested universe, right? This material universe. Energy is a part of that, very clearly. But what I'm talking about isn't energy. It belongs to that realm which Kabir is talking about, that potentiality. It's so subtle. So when you meditate and are somehow able to receive this or be affected by this, it has the effect of bringing your own consciousness to that state to a certain extent. And that's why we're able to enter into this deep meditative state, or drowsiness, right? This deep meditative state, which is called samadhi. Understanding that this word itself, samadhi, means the state of being that is equal to the state that prevailed before the universe came into being. That's sort of the literal meaning of the word, equal to the state that prevailed before the universe came into being. That what was Kabir talking about again, that non-manifested realm. So only something on that level can bring you to that level, and where you can feel that balance, that stillness. Because in this manifested universe, there's no stillness anywhere. It's defined by its constant movement. It's defined by time, So that's what this is all about in a way. How are we doing for time? Speaking of time. Oh, well. Oh, well. Yes. Yes, I mentioned the light. Yes. Okay. So the question is that I had mentioned something to do with light. Are we supposed to see this light, or are we supposed to feel some peace, or what exactly is it all about? So basically, it is something, right? It is something that the mind can at least, to some level, grasp, right? It's not something to imagine or to try to see. It's more in the level of experience. It's more in the level of feeling, which is why we use the heart for meditation and not some other organ. Because you don't say, I feel love in my liver, you know. So if, this is a place where we tend to feel things. So when we're talking about feeling or sensing something, perceiving something through feeling, it's with the heart. And this light is something, it's just, it comes as a feeling and nothing that you see. You will find it difficult to, anybody will find it difficult to meditate on the ultimate cause of everything. You find it very difficult to meditate on this realm of beyond being and non-being that Kabir was talking about. There's nothing there to grasp. You'll not be able to conceive of it in any way. You can't know such things because the mind can only understand things via comparison. You can understand that something is high by comparing it to something which is low. You can understand something's big by comparing it to something that's small. So everything that we can mentally, you know, understand is based upon the existence of some opposite to which we're comparing it. Right? But if you're going to talk about something which is beyond relativity, something that's an absolute, then the mind will never be able to grasp it one bit. So we have to go beyond the mind for that. So therefore, to meditate upon such a thing, it'll be very difficult. We won't know what kind of thought to have. So we take something that's just very subtle. We say light, but light without luminosity. Something you can't see, but something you can only feel. Right? So with that, that becomes a stepping stone into the reality. Right? That idea is just an idea, but it becomes a stepping stone into the real thing. And it takes us there. As you find yourself getting drawn into meditation, you leave that thought behind. That's fine, you leave it behind. And it's okay if you lose that idea. We're not trying to hold on to the idea. We're trying to transcend this idea and go to the real thing behind it. You know? So it's just very simple, just what you feel. That's it. Yes. Yes. We can enter into a state of meditation at many times in life. That's true. But also, the state that it produces, meditation produces in us, also has some, uh, it's in some way determined by that object which draws us into that state of flow, also. You know? Active meditation is the same whether you're meditating on some problem that you have to solve and it completely absorbs you, or on some experience that you're enjoying, or whatever it is. This absorption and losing track of time and yourself, this is common no matter what. But the state produced will be dependent on the object in which you're losing yourself. Just as the act in this book, there's the example. The act of drinking is the same no matter what you're drinking, but the effect is going to be different if it's whiskey than if it's water. Depends on the object, you know? So the state of flow is always good, but then we can also become subtler and subtler and subtler depending upon the object that we're meditating upon. And ultimately, we should come to a place where we can remain in meditation on that subtlest thing 24 hours a day, though we're doing other things. So that subtlest state of flow remains sort of a permanent feature in our lives, and then other things get added to it, you know, whether it's a book or a problem or this or that. You know. Thank you.
I have one last thing to cover for resources, but before I do that, thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause? Thanks. Have a seat. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we have different meditation sessions in different parts of the building, typically around lunch hour, so most people can make it. And these are all the buildings where we currently have sessions. And there are a lot of other resources as well. We have a Heartfulness alias where we post events and we communicate and let people know about additional sessions that we might have. We also have the Hearts app, which is an excellent app to go through guided relaxation and meditation. We have the Heartfulness Way book, which explains in depth what meditation is and why it's useful. There's also a YouTube channel for Heartfulness, where we have a lot of video resources where you can learn more about Heartfulness. That's about it. Thank you, everybody, for being here and experiencing this amazing experience. Thank you.